We've explored the undifferentiated, not as a void or a blank state, but as a vibrant field of pure potential, a place before boundaries, before identity, and before story, a place where being flows as one, where experience is immersive, rhythmic, and alive with resonance. But what does this mean in practice? How does a concept this subtle, this foundational, inform the way we approach healing, development, and care? To begin, we must recognize that this field still lives within us. The undifferentiated is not just where we began. It is a layer that continues to move underneath all the others. It is the tone of the field, and when we forget it, we often misread what's needed. In the earliest stages of life, the infant is not separate from their environment. There is no me and you, no subject and object, just a shared field of experience, one continuous flow of breath, tone, temperature, and rhythm. From this perspective, the primary task of early caregiving is not to stimulate or teach, it's to hold the field. That means providing a consistent, resonant presence through touch, tone of voice, rhythm, and gaze. These are not just soothing gestures. They are how the caregiver becomes the first environment of coherence, allowing the infant's nervous system to begin sensing the difference between chaos and calm, rupture and rhythm. When presence is consistent, the infant does not learn in the cognitive sense. They remember coherence. They remember safety as a felt rhythm, not an idea. And that memory becomes the ground from which all future development will unfold. But when presence is ruptured or chaotic, through neglect, trauma, or misattunement, the infant does not simply feel discomfort. They may experience disorganization at the level of the field. The difference here is subtle but profound. It is not just that something bad happened. It's that the very ground of being was unheld. So, early interventions, whether in parenting, neonatal care, or somatic therapies for infants, must begin with field awareness. Before we regulate behavior, we must co-regulate presence. Now let's move forward. What does the undifferentiated mean for us as adults? Most of us are conditioned to live entirely from our patterned or symbolic self, navigating identity, making meaning, managing roles. And yet, in moments of trauma, profound stillness, or spiritual awakening, the field can reopen. We touch something deeper, and when we do, we often don't know how to make sense of it. That's because the undifferentiated doesn't speak in language. It speaks in tone, in rhythm, in silence. And it requires a different kind of listening. In therapy or contemplative practice, when someone drops beneath their narrative into a place of deep silence, numbness, or overwhelm, we may be tempted to bring them back up to words or insight or even breath. But sometimes, what's needed is witnessing without direction, to simply be with the field, not interpreting, not fixing, not organizing, just allowing the field to remember itself in the presence of another. This is especially true for those whose early containment was ruptured. For them, dropping into the undifferentiated can feel terrifying, not because it's bad, but because it's unfamiliar. So we have to bring coherence before structure, safety before story. This means learning to attune not just to content, but to quality, to the tone of voice, the movement in the breath, the subtle changes in posture or temperature. The field will show itself when we stop trying to manage it. This brings us to a final point. Therapeutic presence is not just a stance. It is a field phenomenon. It is not a technique. It is a state of being that makes room for others to reorganize themselves in its rhythm. Presence at this level is less about what you say and more about how you are. Do you rush? Do you grasp? Do you leave your own body to help another? Or can you remain in embodied stillness, allowing the other person's field to soften, to uncoil, to become again? If so, then even in the midst of dysregulation, the system may begin to self-organize, not because of what you did, but because you remembered the field. To work with the undifferentiated is to begin before beginning, to honor presence as the ground of becoming, to hold space not just for story, but for silence, not just for insight, but for rhythm, not just for healing, but for remembering. Because even now, beneath all our roles, our defenses, our striving, there is a field, and it's waiting to be held. In the comments, please share how you experience and nurture presence, and what has helped you find your way back to this space. If this perspective resonates with you and you'd like to see more content, please like and subscribe. What will come next is an exploration of the sensorial ground. I'll see you then.